What is the creepiest confession, most disturbing that you have heard from an otherwise normal person? I started seeing a girl about a month ago. She recently told me she was raped when she was 5. Her parents were druggies and had her at a young age, so she stayed with her grandma. But my girl's grandma was a drunk, so she would have her son, my girl's uncle, take care of her. He was about 25 when this happened, as the story goes. He went to go score whatever drugs he was on at the time and left his 5-year-old niece unattended in the car for who knows how long. When he returned, he found her covered in blood. She had reconstructive surgery on her vagina from where the guy tore her open. She confided all of this in me before I went down on her because she has confidence issues because one side looks stretched. Doesn't bother me one bit. She says she still remembers his face and tries not to think about it. The most fucked up thing is when the uncle brought her home, they did nothing. Because he was buying drugs at his dealer's house when it happened. They did nothing. To save the fuckhead uncle that brought the 5-year-old around a bunch of junkies. Who knows what actually happened? He could have allowed it to happen for drugs. About 6 months after this happened, he killed himself. OD. My girl says she doesn't like talking about it, so I don't ever bring it up. But I know it has definitely affected her mentally. I just wish there was something I could do to help her forget. TLDR. My girl got molested when she was 5 while her uncle scored drugs and nothing was done about it. Had an absolutely charming, incredibly smart-looking close friend for a few years. It took me about 5 to 2 years to find out everything about her life was a lie. Even the smarts, she'd read some detailed article on a subject and present ideas as if they were her own, but never knew anything deeper. Pretended to speak many languages by secretly watching a foreign movie with subs on, then translating some cool scenes to us. She made up a story about her father abusing her mom to make excuses for failing her uni exams, lied to people about being a medical student to look smart, and would give them very dangerous advice. Lied to her family about being a brilliant medical student, don't know if they believed her, and about many, many other things. She was an incredibly fun person, but an awful toxic friend. Still, I was afraid she'd lose her mind completely if I revealed her secrets to everyone. So I only quietly told the people she was abusing or potentially putting in danger so she couldn't do any damage anymore. Several times I tried to talk her into going into therapy, but I stopped. She was in complete denial about me knowing everything. I was so afraid she'd kill herself if she found out what everyone thought of her. One day, she just packed her things, said goodbye with a hug and a huge smile on her face, and left for another country to pursue her medical studies. I've kept evidence of all the craziness in case it comes back someday. I'd say that if you genuinely pay attention to people around you, you'll find out many creepy stories like this. Some people see friends come and go and actually never have any idea of what's going on in their lives. Wow, it's crazy how common this type of person is. Once I was out with a person like that. We were sitting side by side at dinner, and 2 of our friends were sitting across from us. Mid-meal, the liar's phone rings. Since I'm right next to her, I see that it clearly reads Mom on the caller ID, and she presses Ignore. No biggie, she can call her back later. It's rude to answer a call during dinner anyway. But then she starts talking about how it's her ex who called her and how she's too afraid to pick up the phone. She suddenly tells us that her ex is this crazy stalker-type person who abused her for years and who keeps tracking down her phone numbers and addresses no matter where she moves, and how the police won't believe her, and how she's always so afraid of seeing him on the streets. She started shaking and crying and everything. It was quite the performance. If I hadn't clearly seen that it was her mom who called her, I would have believed it. And for what? What was the point of that? That was the day I really realized how much this chick lied. It was insane. My ex-boyfriend could not handle our breakup. I broke it off with him because of significant issues, drugs, stealing, etc. I finally got out of it. He didn't. He would not give up on me. At first, he was desperate at trying to get back with me, following me, waiting in obscure locations for when I walked to my car, and even threatening to kill himself if I didn't see him. I blocked his numbers, changed my email, transferred colleges, moved a state away, and tried to move on with my life. He was in and out of jail for drugs and stealing in addition to concealed weapons charges, which was scary for me knowing all the times when he confronted me alone. It was about 4 or so years later when I received the creepiest phone call. It was him calling to tell me that he was looking for me all this time. The tone of his voice, the horrific laughter, I freaked out. I called my parents and informed them, hey, if I go missing, this is who has me. I called campus security and made sure they had his description. He never showed up, but my God, the voice on the other end of the line still brings chills. It scares me to this day that he is out there possibly looking for me. Luckily, I've become more aware of precautions to take. pepper spray, learning self-defense, etc. If I was in another state where obtaining a gun was easier, I would have done so. Unfortunately, it's not so easy where I am now. I do, however, have panic buttons and GPS locators, so if something were to happen, I can be found. I try not to let fear or paranoia run my life. I try to take the best precautions, but I will always have that fear that just around the corner, he will be waiting for me. I work with a Polish dude who barely speaks English. He's a lovable 40-something dude who just drinks vodka and laughs infectiously all day long. A textbook carefree scamp. Every couple of months, everyone from work heads to a bar that hook us up with half-price drinks for that particular night. It's pretty sweet. So anyway, this Polish dude and I were at the end of a long 10-person bench, laughing about nothing and drinking ice-cold cruiser after ice-cold cruiser. It was great. Eventually, we somehow got onto the topic of what he did before he came to England. After a few brews, his English became even more scattered, but he did try, bless him. So he says he was in the army and so on and so forth. After which he said, "I shoot 7 men dead." Now that might not seem too heavy for you, but it blew me away. He was on the front lines during the Kosovan War, from what I could gather. I couldn't and didn't want to get too much more out of him due to the language barrier. Also, some gnarly illegal shit happened during that war, which I don't think I could bear to know about. Keep smiling, Pete. Unfortunately, this is about me. I told a friend and they were pretty creeped out about it, and I'm quite embarrassed of it, really. I've never done it again, and it's really changed the way I talk to people online. My Reddit account has some very easy-to-follow steps to find out who I am, so I only post positive things, very tame critiques, and that's about it. My account has my name that I share with a lot of other things, previous online accounts, etc. But my story is about how I cyber-stalked a BF3 hacker just because he was being annoying. When BF3 became free-to-play, I joined a TDM server. I have quite a few hours on BF3, 300 plus, and I really enjoyed it. To see a full server again was quite fun, and I was kicking ass. Then this guy joins. This guy starts kicking ass, heading-shotting me from across the map. I don't think too much of it, but I ask, "Hey man, is that all skill?" He responds it is, and he's streaming. BF3 isn't a very popular game, so it took less than a minute to find his Twitch stream. Just look for a picture of the same map being played, and his was the first, clearly hacking. Boxes on screen, snapping headshots, the whole 9 yards. So now I had his stream, I called it out in-game, linked the stream, and he left, and I was booted a minute later. In that minute, he was joking about how, as the game was free, he could just get another account and keep going. On his stream, he wasn't talking, but he was typing. He was typing to another streamer. Now his stream just had me as a viewer. I was pretty bored and he had my attention. He hadn't really ruined my gaming experience, it was just, hey, who is this douche? His Twitch name matched his Twitter name, which he used to promote his stream. His Twitter was filled with bully trolling posts at people and he was just a smarmy douchebag. No photos though. His name was included, but it wasn't a very unique name. Now I have a Twitter account and a name. This is where it gets even worse. I start to trawl his posts. Going back months, I find a post that links him to a town. I Google search the town and his name. Bingo! A post about Australia Day and how he thought this town had put on a really bad show. Just saying how bad it was, etc. and trolling people in the comments. It was a small town and people were biting, "You should organize it if you think you're so great," etc. He was eating it up. But I had his Facebook. Start looking into his profile, posts were private, but the Facebook URL closely matched the Twitter, so I knew it was him. The profile pics were nondescript. Band pages, random shit like that. But this guy had a girlfriend. Her profile was public and she kept tagging him in posts. It was so cringy. "I love you, boo, you are my world, the most beautiful girl I know," etc, etc. The guy and his girlfriend were 2 ham planets. He was the epitome of keyboard warrior. He had a fedora wearing lens flare edited profile picture. It was actually just perfect. It was just so satisfying that this guy was the stereotype personified. I could have left it there, but I had to go a step further. I created another Twitch account just to let the guy know I found him. I posted his Facebook details in the chat of Twitch. There was like max 4 people watching him stream, but you could see it pop up on his stream chat, him pause mid-game and just not do anything for like 5 seconds. He closed the stream. Back in my early 20s, I'm 41 now, I had a small group of close friends. We'd get together after work and on weekends to smoke weed or drink. Sometimes someone would bring someone new. One new guy I'll call Scott started to hang out frequently on weekends. Seemed normal but mostly quiet. One night Scott gets stoned and tells the group how a neighbor abducted him and his younger brother at knife point from the woods behind their house and forced him to perform sex acts with his younger brother while the neighbor watched. If they balked or refused, the guy would cut them or poke them with the knife. Scott's telling this story like he's no longer aware we are even in the room. He's looking through us. He tells us that the guy lets them go after like 8 hours. When Scott gets home, his little brother runs and hides, so he goes and tells his mom what happened. But she doesn't believe him and claims he's making it up to excuse the two boys for being late. The next day, Scott's little brother still wouldn't come out of his room, so Scott tells his dad, then takes his dad and shows him his little brother's bleeding rectum. Scott tells us everything goes to hell from there. The cops are called. The story has to be told over and over again. Scott's parents' marriage explodes due to his mom not believing the story or even informing the father about it. Scott's mom tells everybody remotely close to the family the details, which embarrasses and humiliates both the boys. Scott says he tried to block it out, but his little brother is tormented by it, despite tons of therapy. Parents divorce and Scott's dad has custody. Scott continues telling us how his brother blames him for everything for years. The little brother was sodomized by Scott multiple times during the ordeal. So, a couple years go by and Scott's little brother is guilting him the whole time. The little brother decides the only way he can forgive Scott and get past it is if he gets to do to Scott what Scott was forced to do to him. Guilts Scott into it through a lot of blame and then threats of suicide. Afterwards, the younger brother tells the parents and immediate family what he did to Scott. Then the brother decides he can't live with what he did with Scott. Brother writes in his suicide note that he can't understand how Scott could live with himself after what Scott did to him because he can't live with what he did to Scott. The younger brother hanged himself. Scott tells this whole story to us, then he curls up in fetal position and starts bawling his eyes out. Everybody is just stunned. We did bong hits till Scott cried himself out, then the dude who first brought Scott in takes him home. We never see Scott again. I have a couple posts. One friend stabbed someone and the person did not survive. He wasn't charged because he claimed self-defense, but he's all fucked up about it because he thought the person was armed and they weren't. When I was 13, my 16-year-old friend told me she used to shit herself until she was 13 in an effort to keep her dad from molesting her. She threatened to call the cops and her dad committed suicide with a shotgun in their living room. My ex told me that he fantasized about his 7-year-old neighbor. That was 10 years ago. He's fucked up and I know it. This same ex told me his uncle used to fall asleep with his genitals in his mouth. He was a kid. I've had a pretty colorful life, but I don't want to air my personal dirty laundry. I'll update if I think of anything else. Edit. I got one more for you. My friend has long dreads and had a pretty bad case of lice. When he came back from traveling, his roommates wouldn't let him in the house until he was lice-free. Being poor, he couldn't afford treatment, so he dunked his head in some sort of gasoline. Then he lit a cigarette. He has no nipples, most of his body is skin grafted. He still has dreads. He is lice-free. Oh, what the heck, I'll keep going. My friend passed away a year ago. His fuck buddy at the time wanted to inject heroin into his veins for him. She overshot it. I honestly thought he was clean, so I was a bit surprised. I was at a friend's farmhouse and watched them stomp a baby opossum to death. I was told they also hacked a raccoon with a machete. This is the same person that was excited about their new taser and keep looking for small critters, mostly toads. To tase, he would then throw their paralyzed bodies in the fish pond to drown. Edit. More. A friend of mine is a production of rape. He has serious identity issues as his mother is Native American and his father is white. He absolutely despises white people. My best friend that passed away confided in me that his girlfriend from back in his home state, we meet in college, was pregnant and giving the baby up for adoption. She also had leukemia, but beat it, I know during the pregnancy she needed a blood transfusion. He told me he didn't really care about her anymore. He was struck by a car and she had just given their baby up for adoption. They started a lengthy court battle to get back custody, and I never kept in touch with her enough to find out the outcome. Another good friend confided in me that his girlfriend was repeatedly sexually abused by her brother. She could always get uncomfortably perverted in public, so I was really surprised to hear that. Oh! And a friend of mine told me her parents wiped her ass for her until she was 12 and they melted her ice cream before she could eat it because they were afraid it was too cold. She also told them that her car broke down after she needed $10K to buy another. It was fine. She lied and used the $10K to pay for her girlfriend at the time sex change operation in Thailand. Share your opinion in the comments and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more stories.